The best way to learn English. Elara knew English well. She understood complex articles, movies, and conversations with ease. Yet, a silent barrier always stood between her comprehension and expression. When someone spoke to her, words often froze on the tip of her tongue. This frustration was a constant companion, despite her vast passive knowledge. She would nod, smile, and offer brief, non-committal answers, all the while her mind raced, formulating perfect responses in her native tongue. "I understand English but I can't speak well," she'd confess silently, a heavy sigh escaping her lips. It felt like a linguistic prison. There had to be a way out. Elara began her quest for the best way to learn English. She devoured articles, watched countless videos, and joined online forums, searching for that magical solution. The common advice often felt too generic or overwhelming. Then, one evening, she stumbled upon a simple yet profound philosophy. Speaking wasn't about perfect grammar or vocabulary, but about building muscle memory and confidence. It was about transforming passive understanding into active verbalization. A spark ignited within her. The core idea was astonishingly straightforward: to genuinely learn English, one must integrate it into daily life. It wasn't just about studying, it was about living the language. This shift in perspective was Elara's first real breakthrough. How to think and speak became her new mantra. She realized she was translating in her head before speaking, which caused delays. The goal was to bridge that gap, to form thoughts directly in English, bypassing the translation process. The journey began with a fundamental step: why you must listen. Active listening was crucial, not just hearing words, but processing intonation, rhythm, and natural phrasing. She started with podcasts and audiobooks daily, consciously absorbing patterns. She didn't just listen, she immersed herself. Podcasts during her commute, English music while cooking, documentaries while relaxing. It was about flooding her ears with authentic English, letting the sounds become familiar and comfortable. This saturation was key. After listening, she'd try to mimic the sounds, even if just to herself. She repeated phrases, focusing on pronunciation and rhythm. This wasn't about understanding every word, but about feeling the language physically in her mouth and throat. The next vital step was implementing talk in English just 1 page per day. This practical strategy seemed manageable, not overwhelming. It provided a concrete goal for daily speaking practice, a tangible target she could hit consistently. 1 page wasn't literal paper. It was a metaphor for a dedicated speaking session. It meant choosing a topic, any topic, and speaking about it for a set duration, roughly equivalent to reading a page aloud. This simplicity was empowering. She'd pick everyday subjects: her morning routine, a movie she watched, her plans for the weekend, or even just describing objects around her room. The content didn't matter as much as the act of speaking itself. Quantity over initial perfection. The advice to start talking at home resonated deeply. Her home was a safe, judgment-free zone. There, she could experiment, make mistakes, and sound awkward without feeling embarrassed. This privacy was essential for building initial confidence. She began talking to herself in English. Narrating her actions, I am making coffee now. The water is boiling. Describing her thoughts, I feel tired today. I need to finish this report. It felt silly at first, but it worked. A mirror became her first audience. She'd look into her own eyes and attempt to hold a conversation, asking herself questions and answering them. This helped her observe her own facial expressions and body language while speaking English. Recording her voice was intimidating but incredibly insightful. She'd speak into her phone, then play it back. This allowed her to identify areas for improvement, like pauses, intonation, and clarity, without external pressure. It was tough love. Elara began accumulating her own talking tips through trial and error. She discovered that consistency was far more important than intensity. Short, daily bursts were better than infrequent, long sessions that exhausted her. One key tip she embraced was speaking slowly. There was no rush. It allowed her brain to formulate thoughts in English and her mouth to articulate them clearly. Speed would come naturally with increased fluency and confidence. Her focus shifted from perfect grammar to fluency. It was okay to make mistakes, the goal was to keep the conversation flowing. Mistakes were learning opportunities, not reasons to stop. This liberation was crucial. She learned to use simpler words if she couldn't recall a complex one. Paraphrasing became her friend. Communicating the idea, even simply, was superior to getting stuck searching for the perfect vocabulary word. Filler words like, or like, were okay initially. They bought her time to think and kept the speaking momentum going. She knew she'd reduce them naturally as she became more comfortable and fluid. Instead of translating word by word, she started thinking in phrases or chunks. This mimicked natural speech patterns and made the process less taxing, helping her construct sentences more organically and quickly. How other people talk in English became a fascinating study. She watched interviews, casual conversations, and speeches, observing native speakers. She paid attention to their rhythm, stress, and natural pauses. She'd pick a phrase or a short sentence from a show and try to replicate it exactly, focusing on the cadence and intonation. This was like vocal exercises, training her mouth and ear to work in tandem. She practiced common conversational connectors and rejoinders. That's interesting, I see what you mean, could you repeat that? These small phrases made her feel more engaged and less like an observer. Beyond just talking, Elara diversified how to practice English. She joined online language exchange groups, initially just listening, then slowly participating with short questions or comments. Exposure was paramount. Reading English books or articles aloud became a regular practice. This helped with pronunciation, rhythm, and connecting written words to spoken sounds. It also built confidence in articulating longer sentences. Shadowing, repeating after a speaker almost simultaneously, was a challenging but effective technique. It forced her to keep pace, improving her reaction time and helping her internalize natural speech patterns. She'd pick a random picture from a magazine or online and describe it in detail for a few minutes. This pushed her to use descriptive vocabulary and structure spontaneous sentences on a visual prompt. Instead of writing a journal, she started speaking her journal entries aloud into her recorder. This combined personal reflection with speaking practice, making it more engaging and less academic. There were days, of course, when progress felt stalled. She'd feel the old frustration creeping back, the familiar sensation of, "I understand English but I can't speak well." These plateaus were part of the learning curve. But Elara had learned resilience. She reminded herself of her small, consistent wins. She kept talking, kept listening, kept practicing, even on days when her motivation wavered. Discipline became her guiding force. Then came the day. A casual encounter at a local cafe led to an unexpected conversation with a native speaker. Her heart pounded, but she remembered her tips: slow down, focus on fluency. She stumbled, yes, but she didn't stop. She managed to articulate her thoughts, ask questions, and even crack a small joke. The other person understood her, and crucially, responded. It was a small victory, but momentous. Each subsequent conversation, no matter how brief, built on that foundation. The fear gradually receded, replaced by a growing sense of confidence. She realized speaking wasn't about perfection, but about connection. The most remarkable change was how her brain started to rewire itself. She found herself thinking in English more often, even dreaming in English sometimes. The translation barrier was finally dissolving. Now, when someone spoke English, her response formed directly, seamlessly. The words flowed from thought to mouth with an ease she had only dreamed of before. Her internal monologue had shifted languages. She started observing herself talking, just as she had observed others. Her intonation was more natural, her pauses more appropriate, and her vocabulary, though not expansive, was used effectively to convey meaning. The true reward was the joy of genuine connection. She could now participate fully in conversations, express her personality, and share her ideas without the frustration of being misunderstood or silenced. Her English journey had moved far beyond merely understanding. It had blossomed into true communication, a bridge built with consistent effort, one spoken page at a time, one hesitant word after another. Elara began sharing her journey, offering her talking tips to friends who also struggled. She emphasized the "start talking at home" approach, advocating for a safe space to begin the speaking journey. She reiterated the importance of listening, not just as a first step, but as an ongoing practice. Listening continued to enrich her vocabulary and refine her understanding of natural speech patterns. Even now, fluent and confident, Elara maintained her daily, talk in English just one page per day, habit. It was no longer a chore but a cherished ritual, a way to keep her English sharp and agile. She understood that learning English, or any language, was not a destination but a continuous journey. There was always more to learn, new nuances to discover, but the fear of speaking was gone forever. Her core advice remained simple: don't wait for perfection. Don't fear mistakes. Just start talking. Even if it's just to yourself, even if it feels silly, the act of speaking is the most powerful catalyst. Elara's transformation from someone who understood English but couldn't speak well to a confident, fluent communicator was a testament to the power of deliberate, consistent practice. Her voice was finally free. She often reflected on how those seemingly small, daily steps, talking for just one page, listening intently, thinking in English, accumulated into an incredible, life-changing impact. Every word counted. The biggest shift wasn't just in her skills but in her mindset. She stopped viewing English as a daunting academic subject and started seeing it as a living, breathing tool for communication and connection. She learned to embrace the awkwardness of initial attempts, knowing it was a necessary part of growth. It was like learning to walk, you stumble before you can run confidently and gracefully. Ultimately, confidence was the key. And confidence, she discovered, came not from knowing everything, but from daring to speak with what you knew, and building upon that courage, one word at a time. Your voice matters, she'd tell aspiring speakers. Don't let the fear of imperfection silence you. Your unique perspective, expressed in English, is a valuable contribution waiting to be shared with the world. Find your safe space to practice, whether it's your room, a quiet park, or a trusted friend. The less pressure you feel, the more freely your words will begin to flow and connect. Celebrate every small victory, understanding a joke, completing a sentence, asking a question. Acknowledging progress fuels motivation and reinforces the positive feedback loop of learning and speaking. If Elara, who once only understood English but couldn't speak well, could transform, then anyone can. The path is clear: listen, think, talk daily, starting at home, using simple, actionable tips. So, take that first step. Open your mouth. Let the words come out, however imperfectly. Unlock your English voice, and unlock a world of new possibilities and connections. Your journey starts now.